Neozoic Island. Written by David Overholt. Produced by Obro Studio.
If you're hearing this recording, it means that I am dead. My name is George Walter Holland, and I'm making this statement so there can be a complete audio record of how I created this island and the wondrous creatures who live here. I suppose it all began for me when I was 4 years old and my father took me to the Museum of Natural History. I still remember the first time I saw the giant towering bones of Tyrannosaurus, Brachiosaurus, and Triceratops, and how those magnificent animals captured my imagination. But for me it was more than just a passing childhood fancy. It became an obsession that would shape the course of the rest of my life. As a young man, I made my fortune with oil, fossil fuels. So once again the dinosaurs had taken a hand in shaping my destiny. Later on in life, I became fascinated with the concept of cryptozoology. Hearing tales of Mokele Mbembe, a long-necked sauropod supposedly living in the jungles of the Congo, or the Kongomoto, a flying pterosaur. I went on numerous expeditions over the course of my life looking for these creatures all over the world, but I never found them. Despite this, my love for these amazing creatures never diminished, and so, quite against the advice of my lawyers and banker, I founded the G.W. Holland Foundation and funded countless paleontological digs all over the world. I built museums and filled them with the bones of dinosaurs for the world to enjoy. But then I heard that soft tissue, including blood vessels, had been found inside the bones of Tyrannosaurus, and my heart fluttered, like I was a small boy once again. For years, scientists had said that if they had DNA of dinosaurs, they could clone them and bring them back from extinction. I spent over $500 million collecting samples from every species I could, until I found that their claims were hollow. The empty promises of over-enthusiastic scientists that thought this sort of biological material would never be found. Bringing back the dinosaurs was an impossible dream, I could see that now. But then my mind turned to another solution. If there was no way to bring dinosaurs back from extinction, to relive the Mesozoic age, perhaps instead I could create a Neozoic age, with new creatures the world had never seen before, that captured the same grandeur of dinosaurs, the same wonder and mystery. And so we set about our work. It was slow going at first, until we read papers on a process known as Atavism Activation, taking dormant genes inside living creatures, interrupting their natural development and turning these genes back on again. The earliest tests were with chickens in a laboratory, experimenting to see if we could give them teeth and claws and other reptilian features. There were, of course, critics. There are always critics, calling it unnatural, unethical, reciting the old adage that there are some things that man was never meant to tamper with. But even they couldn't deny the exciting implications of what we were doing, or the sense of wonder when they saw that it worked. As the embryos developed, we saw beaks begin to round to reptilian snouts. Teeth formed. Wings became arms with claws and hands. And for the first time, we truly felt as if the curtains of eons had rolled back, and we were witnessing the birth of a creature from some bygone age. A lost world, if you like. There were, of course, certain complications to overcome. We never could get the chickens to grow long tails naturally, as they weren't part of their original biological makeup, and in the end we had to resort to further genetic manipulation to get them there. It was only a temporary setback, of course, thanks to another process known as transgenesis, where features from one species can be transferred to another through genetic manipulation. And in this case we used monitor lizards and artificially grafted their genes into the chickens so they could grow long reptilian tails. We used this process again and again for all the other creatures on the island. After the initial excitement had worn down in the lab, we soon realized there were complications. The animals were sterile, and for a time it looked as though my Neozoic world would be nothing more than an unfulfilled childish dream. Even after we solved the breeding problem, they weren't passing their genetic modifications on to the next generation, and often the parents would devour their young, seeing their unmodified chicks as nothing more than a food source. But then, on May 25th, during a violent tropical storm that raged across the island, it happened. As the eggs hatched, we collectively held our breath, and then we saw it. A small reptilian creature breaking free from its shell. And as the thunder rolled and the rain splashed down on the tin metal roof of the laboratory, we witnessed the birth of a new species, Brachiosaurus, because it was the first.